Why do you need help with Architecture Studio? Probably because of something a little bit controversial, but it's become quite a popular and almost accepted topic these days if you're on the right channels and LinkedIn or other channels where they talk about how the architecture studio model is outdated. And this next statement being a little bit more controversial would be architecture studio is almost set up to make you fail at the profession. Now, I don't actually really truly believe that. I say it, but I say it also because of the experiences that I've heard from a lot of my students. Now, it's not so much that they're really setting you up to fail. It's not some kind of conspiracy, it's nothing like that. But for those who are already studying, not so much for those who are already who aren't studying yet, but for those who are already studying, this question to you would be, you I suppose you've by now in your first, second, or third year you designed a house of some sort, hopefully, and I hope you've done it in a typical architectural kind of way. Because if they make you run through any kind of Mickey Mouse exercises about breaking apart the creative process, it's a waste of time. There's enough to learn in the architectural field not to do any more creative process exercises, especially when the creative process is universally not defined. There is no such sort of defined way to teach you design and creativity. And that's, again, why I created the spatial thinking framework. And I think it does the job. I think it does structure creative process in a lot clearer way, because the students that I have helped and have followed the spatial thinking way are finding a much clearer design process, right? And I'll talk later about what design process really means, but still focusing on Architecture Studio, hopefully you've designed a house. Hopefully you've planned out a house. Now, have they even taught you how to plan something? Like really taught you? I've had students who are working on a house and they just sort of do what they're asked. And I said, try to focus on the planning, because planning, if nothing else, is 101 of being an architect, right? And yet it's not really taught how to plan, how to think about planning. And when I talk about thinking about planning, it's things like scale or size or organization of things. There is a certain way to think. And this certain way to think is almost exactly the kind of thing that, as an employer, once upon a time, I would be looking for when I employ students or graduates. It's not so much exactly their work, or maybe it is. It's more like this. The plan or the section might look presentable in terms of its drafting quality, maybe, but I can tell the thinking process by just looking at the plan and the section in terms of the planning process, right? Or I can tell the design process just by looking at an image of what they've done, okay? And that's exactly the same thing that happened to me when I first got my first job. I was about to talk and the director said, I don't need you to talk. I can already see what you're all about, okay? And so it's this thinking process, okay? And so do they teach you how to plan? Do they even know how to plan? Now, again, controversial. I'm sorry if I've stepped on anybody else's shoes. But it is frustrating, right? And fine, house. What's the next project you might do? Maybe it's a school, or I've tutored for a theatre, or it could be some other weird project that you're going to do. My issue with that is there's so much to learn with a typical office, a typical apartment tower, or various levels of designing a house that are far more useful than designing a theatre or designing a gallery or any other weird community center that they will probably not do one day, right? How many schools have I designed in my entire career? Less than 5, maybe. How many apartments, towers have I designed? tons. Offices, tons. Houses, less, feels that that's not my kind of typology, but enough, right? And how many of those do you do in uni? You know, who cares about the next weird gallery slash workshop slash whatever, all in the name of trying to teach you creativity, when it's really ineffective? And another question is, if not the most ultimate question is, why is it that after 3 years, that you're practically still useless or considered useless in the workforce, you know? And so if it's not the failure of the education system or not the failure of the architectural studio model, because I don't think the subjects themselves fail, like construction, you know, building systems or whatever, I don't think they fail so much because it's a subject. They teach you knowledge and you learn knowledge. But it is architecture studio where you get to apply it into one building, right? And so if it's not the failure of the architectural studio model, what is? And I don't really think that it's actually the failure of the model itself or the paradigm or the educational paradigm in terms of architecture studio. It is the failure of probably the people that are organizing it or the people that are teaching it. Okay. And so that is why you need help, because in some ways the architecture studio or the architecture program is setting you up to fail. After 3 years, you'd think you'd know enough professionally. And that is not to say that you just go out and just practice professionally and because there is value in the architectural process that is not taught in the profession either. But it is far too slow, far too irrelevant, too many Mickey Mouse activities. And this is one of the reasons why my students still keep coming back to spatial thinking to get feedback for the university projects. Architectural tutoring is actually a bit of a rare thing. And so finding myself doing this now is actually a bit of a surprise, but not hard to understand, because the quality of the education that they're getting from their tutors is dismal. They get 2 or 3 minutes every week, if that, depending on their mood. And it's at the whim of their opinions, not so much practical or logical feedback. It's sort of, they can take them, few words to a student, they can take them down to these rabbit holes that produce nothing useful, right? And so, for example, I give an example. One of the projects that one of my students or two of my students are doing is sort of a, mid-rise, high-rise type of building in the city. And now this is the type of project that I'm very much used to. I do large towers in all kinds of situations, but responding to the city is something that I've done for many years. Now, how many of the tutors that you have taught you are large-scale project tutors? And even if they are they good tutors? Because generally speaking, the people that are tutoring are probably small-scale practice people, as well as even if they are large-scale practice, they might not be very good tutoring. Now, sorry if I've tread onto any tutors' sort of egos, but I'm happy to talk to anyone who's really good at teaching, right? I'm happy to talk about it. I'm happy to converse, but the opinion still stands, because I can't ignore the feedback that I get from my students about the pain that they're going through, basically. And if you look up online, anywhere, in Reddit or whatever, you will see endless stories about their painful studios. And now these very same tutors, I'm pretty sure they can read the internet too. Why be one of those? I have no idea. Okay. So getting back to the story, so one of the projects is high-rise or mid-rise. And so I've had 2 or 3 mini studios with these students. And I've taught them basically how to respond to the city, looking at circulation, looking at views, corridors, privacy, all this sort of other stuff, specifically relating to how to respond to a city condition, as well as still the importance of concept within the context of a high-rise building. I ask them what their tutors or coordinators have taught them. Nothing. And it's been week 4, week 5, week 6. Nothing in terms of getting them prepared for their next high rise or mid rise that they might be doing in the profession, right? And so if that's not a fast way to uselessness, I don't know what is, right? And that's why you really do need to think about how much time you want to spend, following other people's lead. I teach my students to bring your own agenda to these studios, or bring your own agenda to the architectural degree, because the architectural degree is probably somewhere between preparing you to be an academic and halfway a little bit of a professional. It's not fully a professional degree in some respects. Obviously, it depends on the university, depends on the country, depends on the coordinators, lots of other things. But in general, that is my opinion. Okay, and so if you think you're doing this degree thinking you're going to become some kick-ass professional, kind of think again and come to each studio, come to each semester with your own agenda. What do I want to learn? What do I want to get out of this? And use the semester as an experiment to get there. Now, again, you don't know what you don't know, and that's why you do need help. And it's not really to sell spatial thinking or the mini studio or anything, but get help from someone else. If there's someone else around, great, right? But why waste 3 years? Why waste 4 or 5 years and then to only find out how slow things are in terms of how to learn the entirety of architecture? Because there's a lot of stuff to learn, right? Why take a knock on your confidence when you could be kick-ass in a short amount of time without help versus with help? Okay. I'm going to end the video here. There's you can talk endlessly about this, but I like to keep each of these videos a little bit compact and to get the titles and stuff go, so you can search basically why is the architectural studio outdated, or basically why it's guaranteed to or set up to fail you. Okay, I'll see you next time.